Hello, hello! Você que estava esperando um momento agora em janeiro de 2021. Agora é a hora. 47% off nos planos anuais do Cambly. E esse mês eles estão focando nos objetivos profissionais. Então, você que quer arrasar na entrevista de emprego em inglês agora em 2021, o Cambly dá um super desconto para você, que é de 47% nos planos anuais. E você pode se preparar muito, muito com isso. Então, até o dia 15 de janeiro de 2021, você pode aproveitar com o nosso código, que é nuicru21start, ou com o link que vai te dar automaticamente esse desconto e você não precisa digitar nada. E tá tudo aqui nas show notes do nosso episódio, ali na descrição. Então, vou lembrar aqui algumas coisinhas do Cambly, tá? Ele não te oferece apenas um único professor. Ele tem uma gama imensa de professores que você pode escolher, testar vários até achar o seu único. Ele não te prepara só para falar inglês nas aulas, né? Então, ele te prepara para falar inglês para a vida, de acordo com seus objetivos. Então, o que a gente sempre fala aqui no Inglês no Rádio é que vocês precisam saber o que te motiva a estudar inglês. Então, você sabendo essa motivação, você está mais do que preparado para achar um professor ou professora lá no Cambly.com ou no aplicativo do Cambly e se inscrever com esses 47% de desconto super bacanas que o Cambly está dando especialmente para vocês nesse começo de ano. Então, aproveite, ok? Happy New Year, Happy 2021, and on with the show.
Hello, hey, sweet people. Welcome to another episode of Inglês no Rádio. Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite. Good morning, Alexia.
Good morning, Foster. It's -3 degrees outside. I'm not happy.
Yes, it's -3 degrees Celsius here in Portugal, which for all of you Brazilians that are hot in Rio and São Paulo right now,
and anywhere in Brazil,
-3 degrees is very, very cold.
It's freezing. Even Buddy's under covers, like he's not wanting to move at all.
Yeah. Can I give you a quick clarification before we start the show today, Alexia? You said even Buddy is under covers. In general, when we are talking about under the covers, like the bed or the sofa.
Undercover is like a spy thing.
Yeah, so undercover is you are in a disguise. You do not want to be recognized.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So under the covers is like when you're...
Have a blanket and then...
Yeah. Como que você falaria isso em português?
Embaixo da manta, embaixo do edredom, embaixo da coberta.
Exatamente. Okay, so yes, we are recording in the living room because that's where we have a heater, and Buddy is quite literally on top of Alexia under the blanket. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so today we are continuing talking about our year in review, 2020 year in review.
And this is part 4.
Part 4, and if you haven't listened the other parts, please go back, start listening part 1, and then you can understand a little bit better what was 2020 for us, like the personal and emotional part of it.
Yeah, so essentially we are just talking about the dumpster fire of a year 2020 for us, and I think we thought, that's an interesting grammatical structure, but it's correct. I think we thought that this would be maybe 1 or 2 episodes, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be like 7 episodes. So if you have not listened to the previous episodes, we recommend starting with part 1.
Yeah.
Anyways, in the last episode, we ended, I believe, in June, July, kind of late spring or summer. And Alexia reminded me of the fact that I went through this very long, complicated, difficult process of getting residency here in Portugal.
Yeah. Just a side note, Foster is getting his residency because, of course, we are here in Portugal. So it's easier for him to stay as much as he wants to stay. I would get the American residency as well if it was easier. It's not. It's very complicated. So we decided to make him have the residency, the Portuguese residency, than the other way around. So even though Portugal is very bureaucratic and it takes a long time, it's an easy process. It takes time. Like you have to show a lot of documents, but it's not like hard, like in the United States, it's very, very hard.
Yeah. Portugal is relatively easy. It's not easy, but in comparison to other countries, for example, if Alexia wanted to become an American resident, I think that would be damn near impossible, especially nowadays with COVID. And for me to become a Brazilian resident, it's very, very complicated. So Alexia is already a Portuguese citizen. Mm-hmm. You have dual citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Portugal is relatively accommodating to Americans.
And not only Americans, young people, right?
Yeah. Portugal has a huge lack of young people and young talent. It's a very old country.
Yeah.
Muitos velhinhos na rua.
Yeah, so it took us a little bit more than a year for you to get your residency. And he started back in the United States because he had to start at the embassy, Portuguese embassy at D.C., Washington, D.C. And then Washington, D.C. would send to CEF here, which is like the federal police here.
Yeah, it's actually Borders and Immigration.
Yeah.
I believe it's...
Serviços de Estrangeiros e Fronteiras.
Exatamente.
And then he got denied the first time just because Portugal didn't understand what he did as a job, as like, I don't understand what you're working.
Yeah, most people do not understand what I do for a job.
Yeah.
So let me set the scene just a little bit for all of those people thinking about, it would be cool to move to Portugal and become a Portuguese resident, a European resident. Obviously, it's quite different for Brazilians. But for me, the process was essentially in October of 2019, a long time ago, we started preparing this process, which requires essentially just gathering documents from all of your life. Proving that you are not a criminal, getting a background check from the FBI, proving how you make money, proving how much money you have.
Proving that you have money to pay for the process as well. I mean, we are not rich at all, but we planned that and we actually thought about it and the benefits of Foster having the residency. So we were like, yeah, it's an investment.
Mm-hmm. In general, we do not say the residency. Yeah. We just say residency.
Okay.
Another example of how we use less articles. Articles are a, an, and the. We do not use those as much as you do in Portuguese.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a brief summary of the process. Gather a lot of documents in the U.S. Apply for an appointment with a company that works with the Portuguese embassy.
É uma companhia terceirizada, right?
A third-party company.
Yeah.
It's like a company that the Portuguese consulate and embassy outsources a lot of the bureaucracy to. Get an appointment with that company. Get a flight to Washington, D.C. Travel to Washington, D.C. Go to that appointment, realize that you are missing a lot of documents, run around Washington, D.C. trying to find these documents, and then I believe we did some tourist things in Washington, D.C.
No, and then instead of taking back those documents to that company, you just went straight to the embassy.
Oh, yeah.
So it's ridiculous because they use that company, but at the end of the day, you need to go to the embassy to make sure that they get these documents. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I have forgotten about so much of this part of this year just because I blocked it out mentally.
And then it was good because you met the lady who was taking care of your process.
Yeah, Dina.
Yeah, and she really liked that Foster speaks Portuguese, and she was very impressed with it. And she saw that we are nice people. So it's always good to make that first impression. And that's what we always talk a lot here about making good first impressions. And Foster did that in Portuguese.
Nice. Thank you. I'm not so sure about that, but I appreciate it. So after that was 2019. After that, Alexia returned to Portugal. Then I traveled to Portugal in January of 2020. One of the requirements for Portuguese residency is that you have a Portuguese bank account. And you have to put money in that bank account to prove that you have enough money to sufficiently live when you're here in Portugal.
Yes, and you can do that without the NIF, which is the CPF from here. And Foster already got the NIF because I am responsible for him here, so he could get the NIF because he knows a Portuguese citizen, so no problem at all. You can't get NIF just because you're here. You have to have a Portuguese person to get that.
NIF is número de
identificação fiscal.
Exatamente.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, if I do anything really bad here in Portugal, if I don't pay taxes or if I owe money to the government, that's Alexia's problem.
More or less like that. Marcelo, the president, will call me and say, "Who's the Foster?" Are you kidding me? Yeah. So he had to have a bank account. Everything went good on that part.
Yeah, not easy. They require a lot of information to open a bank account. And the problem is, I've sent most of that information to the embassy. So it's super complicated. And in the middle of all of that... Okay, wait. One more point. So when you apply for residency, they give you a meeting, an appointment with Sefi. And the appointment is normally way in the future.
Yeah.
Like 6 months in the future.
From 6 months to 1 year.
Yeah. So legally, I'm only, as an American citizen and as a non-resident, I'm only allowed to stay in Portugal and the European Union for 90 days at a time.
Yeah.
3 months.
But because of this appointment, he could stay much longer because he could prove that Seth is going to interview him, and that's fine. It's Seth's problem that they don't have a date in those 90 days.
Right. So essentially, if you have an appointment and they're taking a long time to schedule that appointment, they give you a letter or you have proof of the email and you are legally allowed to stay in the country.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, okay, everything's fine. Not a big deal. I have an appointment. Then the pandemic happened. Family emergencies happened. I had to return to the U.S. Then a travel ban happened. And the language around the travel ban was very, very vague. It said only essential travel, but Portuguese residents are allowed to travel to Portugal. So it was really confusing if I was allowed to travel to Portugal.
And no one knew how to respond that. We would call TAPI, we would call Cefi, we would call American Airlines, we would call all the companies that we could imagine, and everyone was like, well, you had to read the decreto. You had to read the decreto. And I was like, yeah, I'm reading it, and I have a lot of questions about it, and I need someone to answer my questions.
Yeah, so just two things. First, decreto is a decree.
Decree.
Yes, it's a very formal word that most people do not need to know. Secondly, you said no one knew how to respond that.
To answer that.
You can say respond, but respond to that.
Okay. Yeah. So we started this process before pandemic, and Foster got denied in the middle of it. He had to resend some documents, and then he got approved like in August, more or less. You were at the beach with your parents, so imagine it was August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I tell the part of the story before that part of the story?
Yeah.
Okay. So first, we went through that entire process. Then the rules around who can travel to Portugal were extremely confusing. So in June of 2020, I decided, okay, F this situation. I'm going to Portugal because Alexi and I were both having a really, really hard time just dealing with the situation apart. So I got a flight to Portugal. I had to fly from Charlotte. So my mom took me in a car to Charlotte, North Carolina. From Charlotte, I got a flight to New Jersey, where I was going from New Jersey to Lisbon and then Lisbon to Porto.
Don't forget the PCR tests.
Oh, and I had to get like 20 different COVID tests because you have to have a COVID test within 72 hours of flying.
And it has to say negative, and it can't say like not detected.
Okay. So this is another story within the story. And I think this is a great place to stop for today. We will continue the saga, the journey of me trying to get residency, which is just a small part, a complicated part of an extremely complicated year. Until then, keep up the good fight.
And lose well. Bye! Muito obrigada por ter escutado mais um episódio aqui do Inglês de Rádio. É muito bom ter você juntinho assim de nós. Faz muito, muito carinho no nosso coração, digamos assim. Então você que está interessado em saber mais sobre os nossos produtos e saber mais sobre a gente, o que a gente oferece para vocês em relação a estudo, a challenge, a curso, vá lá no inglesdenecru.com e você pode ver mais sobre as worksheets, por exemplo.
Yeah. If you want to really improve your English, if you want to learn more about the ways you can do that, and just connect with us on a deeper level, go to inglesdenecru.com. And as always, keep up the good fight.
And lose well.
See you guys tomorrow.
Bye.